You're a big boy. Put your big boy pants on.
I would ask, don't wear masks. Identify who you are. Don't pull up an undermine.
Governor, you called them Gestapo. Will you apologize for that?
And don't pull people.
Will you apologize for that?
Congressman, my job, I'm a history teacher.
Okay, so you won't. Okay, we're going to move on. No, Mr. Chairman, I reclaim my time. If you won't answer the question. And you can choose between being on the side of law enforcement or the side of vicious criminals. And you've chosen the latter time and again. I don't know why. Maybe it's because you want to impress your limousine liberal friends when you're eating wine and cheese, or you're getting your coffee every morning at the hemp store. I don't know, but I think it's ignorant, and I think it's culpable, and I think it's disgusting. And I can see why the American people on November 5th made it a very bad night for you and a very great night for our future. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First, the channel that puts God, country, and our Constitution above all else. If you're tired of the lies, the censorship, and the way the radical left keeps rewriting history and attacking our values, then this is the place for you. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss a single update. And if you want to support independent conservative media and help us keep fighting the good fight, head on over to patreon.com/America First, that's America First with 2 I's, and support us for as little as $5 a month. Every dollar helps us keep the lights on and the truth flowing. Now, let's talk about the absolute circus we just witnessed in this congressional hearing. Once again, the radical left has hijacked a legitimate discussion about national security and immigration policy and turned it into yet another Trump-bashing spectacle. This was supposed to be a hearing focused on the deployment of National Guard troops in support of IC operations. But what did we get instead? A parade of Democrat talking points, historical revisionism, and willful ignorance about how our laws and our Constitution actually work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Walz, would you say that one of the most important things any governor, or quite frankly any elected official, can do is to keep their citizens and constituents safe?
I would, Congressman.
Great, I would agree. And I ask this because when I was reading your bio that you provided, nowhere did you mention the safety and security of Minnesotans or fighting crime or supporting law enforcement or, for that matter, the rule of law. So I want to take you back to 2020. You were the governor of Minnesota. There were summer protests. You referred to them as peaceful demonstrations. In hindsight, would you still stand by that? Were they mostly peaceful?
Congressman, after the murder of George Floyd on the streets, thousands gathered in the streets. Were there those that...
But, Governor, were they mostly peaceful protests?
The vast majority certainly were. Those that weren't...
So why would you have to call out the National Guard for mostly peaceful protests?
They weren't all peaceful protests.
Okay, so they weren't. All right, mostly. So, Governor, the total damage in dollars, what was that in Minnesota for the peaceful protests?
I don't have that in
all right, according to the insurance industry in Minnesota, they put the number between $1 and $2 billion, and your own state Senate put the price tag at $500 million. So if that's a peaceful protest in Minnesota, I shudder to think what a violent one would cost. Governor, I'd like to keep things simple.
Okay. I did not call it that. We had folks who were there,
and
they're in prison.
Okay, great. I'd like to keep things simple as far as when we talk about federal detainers, and I've talked to several federal law enforcement officials about this. So a detainer is issued when someone's already in custody and confined, jail, prison, court. It's not somebody just plucked off the street randomly, and there's really 3 conditions, and it's and/or probable cause that a foreign national is subject to removal from this country, final deportation order has been issued, or it's a foreign national that's been convicted of a crime and is about to be released. So sanctuary states won't cooperate with federal law enforcement. In Minnesota, do you cooperate sometimes, never, or all the time?
We follow federal law in all 87 counties and all jurisdictions. Some of them do honor detainer requests.
Some do and some don't.
That's correct.
Okay.
Counties have the ability.
Okay. So, Governor, would you commit here and now, and this is really simple, I think it's commonsensical, to compel state and locals in Minnesota to cooperate with all federal detainers issued by federal law enforcement when it involves a foreign national that's been convicted of a felony? And I'm talking about kidnappers, rapists, child molesters, murderers, predators, parasites, scumbags. In all those instances,
of a felony being held by my state corrections, every time we call.
Every single time you're going to do that?
Every time we
in
call
Minnesota.
them and have them come pick it up. What I would ask you to commit to is, are you going to fund ICE's, what they don't pay us, on detainers?
Well, listen, on detainers and in ICE, I don't call them the Gestapo. And this is my definition of Gestapo, Governor. Real Nazis from 1933 to 1945 that facilitated and participated in the murder of millions. I don't call federal law enforcement officers Gestapo. You were recently quoted. Where's the apology?
Donald Trump.
Oh, no, Donald Trump didn't. Listen, Donald Trump's not here.
Yeah.
You are, Governor.
Yeah.
You're a big boy. Put your big boy
I would
pants on.
ask, don't wear masks, identify who you are, don't pull up an
Governor, you called them Gestapo. Will you apologize for that?
And don't pull people.
Will you apologize for that?
Congressman, my job, I'm a history teacher.
Okay, so you won't. Okay,
I
we're going to
used
move
a
on. No,
historical
Mr.
reference.
Chairman, I reclaim my time. If you won't answer the question. I think that's hyperbolic demagoguery. I mean, you said that in a speech, maybe you got a little carried away. I don't know if you apologize for that too, that you were, quote, going to kick Republicans' asses. I mean, I didn't say that. You said it. And that's dangerous rhetoric, especially when you use Gestapo. That's lazy too, and it's terribly inaccurate. The fact of the matter is, again, time and again, you've excused violence and you use dangerous, irresponsible rhetoric. And you can choose between being on the side of law enforcement or the side of vicious criminals, and you've chosen the latter time and again. I don't know why. Maybe it's because you want to impress your limousine liberal friends when you're eating wine and cheese, or you're getting your coffee every morning at the hemp store. I don't know, but I think it's ignorant, and I think it's culpable, and I think it's disgusting. And I can see why the American people on November 5th made it a very bad night for you and a very great night for our future. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome back to Washington, Governor. I'm going to run through a series of facts before I get to my questions, so let's get started. Governor Walz, you signed the Health and Human Services Omnibus Bill into law in May of 2023. That bill expanded Minnesota Care to provide free health care to illegal aliens. You signed the Higher Education Omnibus Bill into law in May of 2023. That bill allows illegals to have their college tuition paid for by the state. You signed the Driver's License for All Act into law in March of 2023, and that bill allows illegals to receive driver's licenses. So, you claim you're not a sanctuary state. You just provide free health care, free college, and driver's licenses to illegal aliens. One reason you're here testifying before us today is because you refuse to cooperate with ICE. While states like Florida and Virginia empower their law enforcement to detain and remove criminal illegal aliens, you, sir, have done just the opposite. Your Attorney General is directing law enforcement to ignore ICE immigration detainers. Do you agree with the Attorney General's guidance?
Well, Congressman, it's good to see you again, and thank you for being here. First, I would say, as my job as governor of Minnesota is to make Minnesota the best state in the nation.
Do you agree with the Attorney General's guidance?
Congressman, what I would say on this is that Minnesota follows all law. I would say
it's a very easy question. And again, if you claim you're not a sanctuary state, you just claim that you support policies. You're not a sanctuary state, but you support policies that prevent ICE from doing their job.
Congressman,
isn't that right?
That is incorrect, Congressman. We follow the same laws when you were in the Minnesota House. The law has not changed,
if you'll allow me, I've got limited time. Well, that's what you tweeted, by the way, sir. And on May 23rd, 2018, you tweeted, quote, "I support policies that keep law enforcement from enforcing federal laws," close quote. On May 17th, just this spring, at the University of Minnesota Law School's commencement ceremony, you said, quote, "Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets." When you said the words modern-day Gestapo, you were referring to ICE agents. Gestapo, by the way, sir, was the official secret police of Hitler's Nazi Germany. So you're calling ICE agents modern-day Nazis. Given the attacks on ICE agents that took place in Los Angeles over the weekend, don't you regard your dangerous, inflammatory rhetoric as a problem?
The questions you want me to answer first.
So, sir, it saddens me that you refuse to express regret from comparing ICE to Nazis. ICE agents are brave Americans who get up every morning, leave their families, and put their lives in harm's way to protect our country, sir. You, at the very least, owe an apology to these dedicated public servants. I will say, sir, inflammatory rhetoric such as yours and the other governors on this panel is responsible for putting a target on the back of every ICE agent who is risking their life to protect our communities. Minnesota is all too familiar, by the way, with the chaos that ensues when you refuse to work with law enforcement to enforce the law. In May 2020, looting, acts of violence, and arson occurred on your watch in Minneapolis after you refused to bring in the National Guard. Governor, Your agenda is clear: free health care, free college and driver's licenses for illegals, while handcuffing law enforcement when they're trying to protect our citizens and their communities. If you think that's not a sanctuary state, you shouldn't be governor. By turning Minnesota into a magnet for illegals, you have opened up our communities to dangerous criminals, including known terrorists, gang members, murderers, and child predators. You have sent a resounding message that if you're a hardworking, law-abiding citizen of Minnesota, your safety and well-being are not the priorities of Tim Walz and his administration. But if you're coming to our state illegally, you're not only welcome with open arms, you're entitled to free stuff on the taxpayer's dime. This is absolutely disgraceful. Governor Walz, your sanctuary state agenda has been defined by your utter failure. You have failed to enforce the rule of law. You have failed to uphold our national sovereignty. And most importantly, you have failed the people of Minnesota. The time for radical sanctuary state policy, sir, is over. The voters made that clear last November when they elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. You remember him, don't you? Governor, the time for real leaders and real leadership is now. And with that, sir, actually, Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record the governor's tweet that I referenced from May 23rd, 2018, which makes it clear his hatred for federal law enforcement.
Let me start by saying this. The idea that deploying the National Guard to help federal agents enforce immigration laws is somehow illegal or unconstitutional is pure fiction. These people either don't understand the law, or worse, they're deliberately misleading the American people. The President of the United States, whether it's Trump or anyone else, absolutely has the authority to federalize the National Guard under Title 10 of the U.S. Code. That's not some fringe interpretation. It's literally written in black and white in federal law. Title 10, Section 12406 says that the President may call up the National Guard when the laws of the United States are being opposed or when the authority of the United States is being obstructed. If widespread illegal immigration, sanctuary city policies, and the refusal of some states to cooperate with IC doesn't constitute obstruction of federal authority, then I don't know what does. These governors trying to play dumb, saying they have no laws preventing IC from doing their job, are playing semantics. Sure, they may not have written laws on the books that outright block IC, but they've created de facto sanctuaries where law enforcement is discouraged from cooperating with federal authorities. That's how the left operates. They use technicalities and loopholes to undermine the rule of law while pretending to have clean hands. It's dishonest, and it's dangerous. And don't even get me started on the Democrats trying to twist the Second Amendment into some sort of states' rights clause. The Second Amendment guarantees the individual right of the American people to keep and bear arms, period. The phrase well-regulated militia doesn't mean what the left wants you to believe. It refers to a properly functioning citizen militia, not a state-controlled National Guard that Democrats can use to push their political agenda and then cry foul when a Republican president actually enforces the law. Let's not forget why President Trump took action in the first place. The situation at our southern border has been a crisis for years, and the Democrats have done absolutely nothing to fix it. In fact, they've only made it worse. They've created sanctuary cities where criminal illegal aliens can hide from deportation, they've pushed for open borders, and they've demonized the brave men and women of IC who are simply trying to enforce the law. So when Trump stepped in and said enough is enough, when he took bold action to deploy the National Guard and support IC, he was doing exactly what a commander-in-chief is supposed to do: protect American sovereignty and enforce our nation's laws. Now, the left is crying about civil violations and law enforcement purposes as if we're supposed to believe that federal immigration law isn't a matter of national security. Give me a break. Every country has the right to control who enters and stays within its borders. That's not fascism, that's common sense. And let's be honest, if the situation were reversed and a Democrat president had deployed troops to protect abortion clinics or enforce gun control, these same Democrats would be cheering it as a heroic use of federal power. One of the most absurd claims we heard in this hearing was that what's happening is unprecedented and illegal. No, what's unprecedented is the level of lawlessness coming from the left, the refusal to enforce immigration law, the way they undermine IC, and their efforts to defund and demoralize our law enforcement. That's what's unprecedented. And illegal? Please. The law is clearly on the side of the president's authority to deploy the National Guard in these situations. There's also something deeply disturbing about the way the left continues to erode the boundaries between civil society and federal law enforcement. They argue that undocumented immigration is merely a civil offense, as if that somehow means it shouldn't be taken seriously. But every single undocumented immigrant is, by definition, breaking federal law. And when local jurisdictions refuse to cooperate with IC, whether it's through policy or practice, they are obstructing federal law enforcement. That's not up for debate. And let's not ignore what this is really about. The left doesn't want to enforce immigration law because they see illegal immigrants as future voters. That's the ugly truth. They want to change the demographics of this country and tilt the electoral map permanently in their favor. That's why they fight voter ID laws. That's why they oppose border security. And that's why they're so desperate to stop the federal government from doing its job. So yes, President Trump was right to deploy the National Guard. He was right to support IC. He was right to bypass governors who refused to act. Because when elected officials fail to uphold the law, the federal government has a duty to step in. That's how our system is designed. To the viewers watching this, don't let the media or these left-wing politicians gaslight you. This isn't about Trump. This is about law and order. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether the United States is going to remain a sovereign nation or become a borderless welfare state for the whole world to exploit. And if we don't stand up now, it might be too late. If you agree with what we're saying, if you believe in putting America first, if you support our law enforcement and our military, then do your part. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family. And if you want to help us continue bringing you the truth they don't want you to hear, head over to patreon.com/AmericaFirst and support us today for as little as $5 a month. We are not going to sit back and let them destroy this country. We're going to fight back with facts, with truth, and with the spirit of American patriotism. This is America First, and we're just getting started.